Right now, tens of thousands of pupils in schools across the UK are not really focusing on maths or English. They're not warming a test tube over a Bunsen burner or struggling with French verbs. They've transformed their classrooms into newsrooms and they've turned into journalists for the day. We've got cameras here, we've got photographer, we've got cameraman, everything. It's all part of Newsday. It's the highlight of the BBC's School Report project, which gives children aged 11 to 16 the chance to make the news in their schools. The project is now in its 9th year, and today more than 30,000 pupils are trying their hand at writing and editing and broadcasting the news. And those school reporters have to work to real deadlines, and crucially, they're broadcasting to real audiences. Now, you can find out what the schools are doing in your area by visiting bbc.co.uk/school report. Hopefully, if you've got a child about that age, they might be involved in something and you're just willing them on. The pupils have to research their stories, whether local or national or international, and they decide who to interview. So, here's what's happened. From Bath Community Academy, two children, Anna and Vinnie, age 11, decided they wanted to interview me. So I'm not going to ask the questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a jingle that's only a few seconds, and then after that, you'll hear Anna and Vinnie, and they're going to take over. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Anna and I'm 11 and this is
Vinnie and I'm also 11.
Hi.
If you wouldn't mind, Jeremy, today we are going to be asking you a few questions.
That's fine.
Okay, moving on to question 1.
A day in the life for me is I would get up, get dressed, maybe eat breakfast, go out the door, go to school, enjoy school, come back home and just sit around, listen to the radio. And yeah.
My day is like Vinnie's, only I try to fit in 1 to 3 hours of reading a day because I like to read.
Great.
But what we would like to know, Jeremy, is what it's like in a day of your life.
Well, I was glad to hear Vinnie say enjoy school and listening to the radio and coming back home, because that reminded me of being a 15-year-old and listening to a guy called Kenny Everett, who was to me the greatest DJ of all time and inspired me to do what I've done.
Wow.
And end up here. And he's not with us anymore, but he was just a genius. But the answer to your question is my alarm went off at 6:30 this morning. And if I sound a bit wobbly voiced, it's because I'm honestly more nervous for this interview than anything I've done, including interviewing the Prime Minister. And I got out of bed and I got on my bicycle and I cycled here to the BBC, which is 6.5 miles.
Wow.
And I love cycling in the morning. And I listened to, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I listened to the Today programme on my headphones with one ear in because I want to hear what's going on. Then we have a meeting here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the producers and the editor, today it was Tim Collins, deciding what to do on the show. And then they all get on the phones, they bash the phones, they book the guests, and then they brief me on what they booked, and then suddenly the first big test of the day is to go and see my colleague Ken Bruce at 11:30 and tell him what's happening. So by that stage we've got a show, and then at 12 o'clock we're live, and then we're here.
Cool.
Amazing.
Is that a good day?
Yeah.
And then at the moment, I won't go on too long, but at the moment we're obviously gearing up for the general election, and I love politics, and I do the graphics, which used to be done by a guy called Peter Snow, and the graphics get more and more sort of complicated and exciting. Yeah, and so we're starting to have meetings about that, so that's all happening as well.
Okay.
Okay.
On to our second question.
Okay.
How does it feel to be... How does it feel to be celebrating 25 years in the BBC?
Well, I think I joined in 1987, so I think it's now more than 25 years. No sooner had I realised it was 25 than it was 28. And I love the BBC, and I've been very lucky. I've done some amazing jobs. I was Africa correspondent. That was probably the most powerful job for me, because I mean, what I think I realised there was that news is real. And it's real things that affect real people, and it's not just something that comes off a press release. And I was political correspondent, which in a way taught me the opposite, and I presented Newsnight, and I look back and I'm very grateful to the BBC for having given me those opportunities. I genuinely, the place is a bit irrational sometimes. It's not always, you sometimes feel it doesn't care about you, and then you realise actually it does, but it doesn't know how to show it. So you just keep turning up at work, and this morning I put my little identity pass on the doors and they opened, and that's how I knew I was still working here.
Okay, question number 3. When I was growing up, I wasn't like most girls. I didn't want to be a princess. But from the age of 5, when I read my first book, I know I wanted to be an author. However, these past few years, I've also considered trying to be a singer.
And
that's very... To hear you say that, you're a very serious person. I'm very impressed. Right, sorry, I didn't interrupt.
That's okay. Sorry. When I was growing up, I also was like Anna. I didn't want to be a footballer like many kids did. But what I really wanted to be was a surgeon or a vet, because I've had many surgeries in my life, and I looked up on the surgeons who had helped me. But past these few years, I've always wanted to be a cameraman or a radio producer like you, Jeremy. And we wanted to ask you...
I'm filling up with questions here for both of you for obvious reasons, but I mustn't ask them. Go on.
What we wanted to ask you, did you always dream of being a radio presenter?
Well, it's funny you should mention that. What happened to me was at aged 11, there was a station in London called Capital Radio. I don't know if it's still going. And I wrote in, they had a show called Hullabaloo, and they had a little slot called the Young DJ slot. And I wrote in and said, could I be your young DJ? And it just meant you had 10 minutes playing records. In fact, it's a bit like, I was about your age, and it's a bit like what you're doing now, but with music. And I just came out of that, and I just said to my mum, that's what I want to do, you know, that. And she said, well, she was lovely about it, but she said, you probably won't find, you won't want to play records when you're like 49. And now here I am, 49, and I'm playing records. But what I think, I just loved radio. I just fell in love with radio. And I realized that's a very precious thing, because when I went to university, there were lots of talented people there, but they didn't know what they wanted to do. And I realized the most precious thing is not even talent, it's knowing what you want to do. And if you guys know as early as now, I mean, you said, Anna, you want to be an author. If you know now, that's the most precious thing. So enthusiasm and a sense of you know what you want is really, really good to have. Now you tell me about your surgeons. That was fascinating. Oh no, don't let me interview you. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, you can if you want.
No, I won't. No, listen, I won't.
Okay.
But you said that, and I always feel like I should pick up on it, but it's not my job to today. Go on. Who wants to ask the next question?
It's me.
Okay.
On to our next question. At Bath Community Academy, we are currently focusing on developing on our literacy and reading skills. If you could go back to school for one day, what would you learn again or study on, and why?
What a great question. You know, the big mistake I made at school was that they allowed me to stop doing geography and history. And I think the teachers I had then were not particularly on it. And so I just thought history was boring. Well, I shouldn't knock the teachers. This was in the 70s, and the teachers had all been in the Second World War. Isn't that incredible? So they were majors.
Wow.
Yeah, they were majors and colonels. A major taught history. A colonel taught geography. The colonel used to show us his arm where a bullet had gone right the way through his arm.
I would like to see that.
These people were heroes. Yeah, he used to just show us where the bullet went, you know, all the time. But for some reason, I didn't click with history, and I stopped at the age of 11, and I never came back to it. And you know, just recently I've been watching Wolf Hall, which is about Henry VIII, and it's off a book by a lady called Hilary Mantel, and I suddenly realised it's coming alive for me, and I know nothing. You know, I didn't even know that Anne Boleyn was the second wife. I didn't even know that she got beheaded. And I suddenly regretted so deeply that I'd allowed just a lack of interest in one lesson to take all of that away from me.
Okay, this is our final question before we move on to the Jeremy Vine Quickfire round.
Okay.
Jeremy, are you ready for your final question?
I am ready for my final question. I've really enjoyed being questioned here.
Okay. Who is the most famous or inspirational person you have in your phone book?
In my phone book, the most famous... Well, I tell you what happened. Once I was having to do an interview with some pop stars for a series on BBC One called Jeremy Vine Meets, right? And one of the pop stars was a guy called Elvis Costello, who is, if you leave out Lennon and McCartney, who wrote all the Beatles songs, he's the greatest. And he was worried that what the interview was about, so he rang me. And you know how it is, if somebody rings you, your phone captures their number. So I've never dared to ring him, but I just have like Elvis Costello underneath my Uncle Charlie. So he's the greatest.
Do you wish to ring him? Anytime soon.
I texted him once about something, and he replied. Actually, I was amazed. But I was, I love this guy Costello, and you'll appreciate this, Anna, because his lyrics and his words, and he uses more words, and he describes stuff better. So you're a writer, you know what that means. And I sort of feel I don't want to get too close because I think you should never probably meet your heroes anyway.
Okay. Finally, on to our Jeremy Vine Quickfire round.
Okay, right. That's almost the jingle. I'm ready.
Question 1.
Yes.
Shades of colour.
Favourite colour? Blue.
Favourite food?
Mussels.
Crisps or peanuts?
Peanuts every time. Salted. Large bag.
Amazing.
Favourite sport?
Watching football, playing table tennis.
Tea or coffee?
At the moment, tea. I've given up coffee since yesterday.
Favourite song?
A Whole Lot of Rosie by AC/DC.
Favourite film?
Memento, directed by Christopher Nolan, about the guy whose memory only lasts 1 minute.
Cake or biscuits?
Oh, if my mother-in-law is making it, cake for sure.
Favourite car? Sorry, favourite type of car, sorry.
Favourite, I'm just such not a Clarkson. The favourite type of car is the one that gives me 3 feet of space when I'm cycling. That's it.
Finally.
Yes.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs. Sorry, cat lovers. Dogs. I love dogs.
I agree with you there.
What type of dog?
I had, when I was the correspondent in South Africa, I had this dog from a dog pound called Zola, who was a Chelsea player, and he was a cross between a Doberman, a Labrador, and a Pointer, and I had never seen a more beautiful dog, a more handsome dog. I loved him so much.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Here's
you.
some music from Deacon Blue.
Okay, we're playing. What are we playing now? What's it called? Do we know? Is it Win? I think it's Win. Thank you so much. Can I thank you as well, Anna and Vinnie? And this was BBC School Report, 2 reporters from Bath Community Academy. Really appreciate the time you've taken, guys, and not even a script. I hadn't seen the questions before.
Stand right in front of her. That's it. Can you open this? Ready? Hang on. Let's record. Okay. And then you say, School Report, take 1, take 1.
No. School report, take one.
Yeah, cool.